Hey guys, Dante here and welcome back to my channel, The Book of Thought. And welcome back to Quick Vids, where I show you how to make something cool in a short amount of time. And today, we're making this bad boy. This right here is a latex puppet head. However, the process in which I go through to make this is very similar to that of making a latex mask one can wear. So I'm going to show you everything from original conception, which is sculpting and texturing, to full-on construction, which is of course the main latex, and then small details like the teeth and general coloring. So that'll be pretty much it. So let's get right into it and see how quick we can get through this, starting now. So first I want to point out that this whole project is actually part of a larger collaboration with Joseph Tesserman, also known as T.R.I.X over on Instagram, and Ray of Disintegration, also on Instagram. Essentially, we took Ray's design, you can see right here on the screen, and from here I went ahead and started sculpting a general idea of how this would look more in real life. The video you're right now watching is actually a collection of 3 live streams I did over on Instagram/YouTube, which you can still find on YouTube. It's all about the texturing and the build-up of the clay. First, I start off with a mannequin whose face I had to slightly contour a bit more with some cardboard around the cheeks and some foam eyeballs. And I just added a layer of clay around it to bulk up the general shape. Block out general shapes you can see, no need for fine detailing, just the nose, the cheekbones, and then basic ideas of where the scars were going to sit. From there, you then go into the finer details. I used small round beads to give him sores and welts all over the face. I then eventually took all of the simple strips that made the scars and began to work them into the skin and make them irregular, really giving them a life of their own. And this is all done in plastilina clay. Now, for future reference, plastilina might not be the best choice for you. I have tons of the stuff, so I want to work through it. But plastilina is sulfur-based, which for those of you who don't know, basically translates to sometimes it mixes poorly with certain latex and silicone molds. So even though plastilina, Roma plastilina might be an easy thing to find, in most art stores, it kind of has its give and take. Luckily, for the plaster we'll be using later on, this wasn't a big problem. Now, the sculpting tools I used for this were simply my own mitts, some wireframe tools, some metal kind of dentistry and wax carving tools given to me by a friend, as well as these weird little round plastic balls that are actually meant for texture. You roll them over the surface of the clay and it picks up various textures. And I also happen to use a rough stipple sponge. I just kind of streaked over everything to make everything kind of cohesive, smooth all the wrinkles together, if that makes sense. Here's some nice detail shots with good lighting so you get the idea of what the final product was, at least in the sculpting stage. I, for one, was very happy with this. I hadn't done a full-scale sculpting like this in quite some time. Once you finish sculpting, you now want to prep it for the molding of it. For the molding, you're going to need several pieces of equipment, one of which, of course, is a molding material. I use hydrocal plaster. Hydrocal plaster is water-based plaster. It is not the same as what you find in your hardware stores, but you can find it in many art stores. You're also going to need a way to coat your sculpture. In this case, I use spray paint. In hindsight, I should have used a different color than white because it matches the plaster, but essentially you want to add just a thin layer around your entire sculpture so it doesn't completely stick to the plaster. Obviously, you want to go light with that layer because you don't want to lose the fine details. And finally, you might just want to also use some Vaseline, not on the sculpture. We'll get to that point in a minute. So you have your bucket, you have your water, you have your plaster, you have your prepped sculpture, and now you have to build the wall. This is going to be a 2-part mold. So you take some clay. Normally you would use a different kind of clay than that used on the sculpture, but I had what I had. So plastilina sculpture, plastilina wall. So you make a wall around the head. I also made a divot around it. That's going to be the notch between the 2 pieces of the mold. And then you go ahead and start adding the mold. The mold essentially is, once again, water to plaster. you slowly hand pour some plaster piece by piece into a bucket of water. Well, I use about a half gallon of water for one side of the face. So you just kind of, sprinkle it in there like fairy dust. And as you add more and more and more by hand, once it reaches a point where it doesn't begin to sink anymore or saturate, you begin to stir it. And once it's stirred, you start adding it to the face of the sculpture. First in really watery, runny layers that just kind of sloshes all over the place, makes a big mess. Get it on the sculpture, get it around the wall, and just keep going and going. Because at some point, it'll go from that watery mess to a quick kind of syrupy and then real quick to a plaster. So just keep going and going until you add a nice rounded surface on top. Once that's done, you then carefully peel off your wall, not to damage your sculpture, and then you're going to have a one side mold done. It's at this point you take some Vaseline and you can put it all around the plaster lining, and then you can start the same process once again, roughly a half gallon of water for me, hand feed it the plaster, and then slosh it on top, trying to get too much runoff. You don't want the plaster to make a dome and then wrap around the back end. You want it to sit on top. And once again, it makes a horrible mess, but when it dries, oh man, this is going to look great. Speaking of which, I'm going to right now cut to the video I recorded during the process so you can see the struggles that tend to pop up when you're trying to crack this sucker open. All the plastilina clay that was used to like hold it up, used to make the sculpture, used to hold the sculpture up, used to divide one half from the other. Oh, it's a hefty boy. Alright. So now we're going to try and divide one half from the other. We have a wider screwdriver, a wedge, which I think is used more for wood carving, but it might help us, and a hammer. I don't want to start hammering it just yet, but you gotta do what you gotta do. I'm trying to nice wedge area. Then I'll just crumble like I have it. And this needs to come off. This is already a little iffy. Like, it's still soft. Like, I could carve into it with this, and that's not good because it won't fully break. I feel like I have to leave this here for like another day or something to let it like really dry out.
An eternity later.
Alright, so it's been technically almost 3 days since I thought this would be ready to go. It just was a bad mixture of too much water. I mean, the final product is good, aside from some really rough edges I could get rid of with some sanding and chipping that I don't need. But this sucker sat for 3 days with a standing fan that's behind me, just on it, and I've been slowly chipping away at it for the past half hour with my now missing hammer and screwdriver standby. Haha! And just slowly chipping and breaking off loose pieces that just on the edge aren't needed, but still, I don't want to take off too much from the edge because it needs to have something to hold on to. And now it is beginning to actually separate. So let's see if we got. Let's see what's prying off first, the front or the back. I believe the front, the face, is actually what's coming off right now. Yep. Basically, I chiseled slowly, piece by piece, and I also broke off pieces that were just in the way and that were going to crack off anyway. Like I said, not the cleanest mold, but still usable. At least I hope it is. Here it is. Just rocking it back and forth because there's a lot of clay used to make the face. Ah! Isn't she pretty? Oh, lordy. That was a lot of effort. And now, the inside's nice and dry, which is good. I'm going to slowly and carefully remove this clay. Maybe use a toothbrush to get into the fine detailing, to get, the cleaning, clean it out without scraping this. Gonna get the back piece off, clean off all the Vaseline, and the next step is the latex. What we're gonna do now is take this mask latex, which is a much more liquidy latex than you would have for, let's say, mold builder latex, which is meant specifically to, well, paint onto an object and build a mold. This, you're supposed to kind of pour it into the mold and shake it around, but to get all the grooves, I am going to do a little painted layer first around the eyes, around the lip, around the ears. Just go loose around the main really tight details on both sides of the mold. Then I'll close it, tape it up nice and tight with like maybe some duct tape or whatever, and then we'll start doing the actual slushing. All right. Now it's a slow process of putting layer after layer of latex, pouring it in, slushing it, and pouring it back out. And if I can reach in there with my brush to get some details, that'll be good as well. All right. Once again, wish me luck in the next part. I might have to speak loud because I'm talking over this really cheap fan. Not even a fan. This is for like inflating like those air beds when you have guests over in your house. Got it for like 15 bucks, right? Blows right inside. I give it a few seconds, rotate the cast, give it a few seconds, rotate the cast. And this is in between putting layers and layers of the latex. I pour the latex in, slosh it around. It really only fills up about halfway, so I have to really slosh it around a lot, rotate this cast. Pour out as much as I can, and then let it dry, rinse and repeat. And since it only fills up about halfway of the amount, when I slosh it, I'm also taking a brush and painting what it doesn't reach around the neck. This is maybe 3 layers in. It might be thick enough after one more layer just to be safe. There are some spots even right now I can feel the nose kind of has like a squish to it. At the very tip of the nose. Because sometimes you put too much and it'll solidify a layer on top and a layer beneath. You get this sandwich, but I don't think it's going to go any more than that. I have let this guy sit for about 24 hours. So now, with a baby powder of your choice, I'm using Clubmen. Gonna just shake it up and puff it in there. You wanna powder up the latex, because latex will stick to itself. And if you don't powder it, when you try to remove it, it's going to be a problem. You might not be able to see it here, but I also powdered my hands, so as I reached in and slowly separated the latex from the actual plaster, it also didn't stick around the cheeks. So you want to put powder on the inside and powder on the outside. And since I forgot to mention it earlier, before any of the latex is poured in, you do need to coat your plaster. And I actually used Pam spray, believe it or not. Yeah, someone suggested just basic Pam spray. So you spray the mold before you do the latex. Oh, And it's thick too. Like I think I did more than I expected. I was afraid it would be too thin. I was afraid the layer would be too thin. Look at that. Oh my god. Oh, this is beautiful. Let me zoom in. And there is our boy. I'll be cutting off a seam. So all of this is extra bits that'll be cut off very carefully on the edge. But yes, using the small beads, you get those nasty welts. You have the scarring. We're able to capture the wrinkles around the eyes. Oh yeah. This is a thing of beauty. Luckily for me, this project did not require a realistic, extreme, detailed skin tone, freckles, and all that stuff. Ray of Disintegration, who's kind of head guy in terms of the final design, requested that we just do a light water wash. So essentially what I did is I went back to my old-fashioned water, soap, and airbrush paint to make a wet wash of brown. And I just slathered the whole thing in wet wash to get into all the fine details and crevices of the scars. I then took a black wash around the eyes a little bit, and that was pretty much it. We also bought some plastic, realistic looking eyes off of Amazon. And for the final touch, I stuffed the whole thing with cotton, just to give it enough where it wouldn't collapse on itself. So the final result for this project is something I'm very proud of. I haven't had a chance to do a lot of special effects makeup in a very long time, and this in truth was my first love. Doing special effects, creating something on paper and then making it real. So getting back into it was a joy. And once again, this is going to be part of a larger project along with T.R.I.X and Ray of Disintegration over on Instagram. So definitely head over there, give them some love, check out both their pages. Ray has tons of monster designs, many of which I am right now working on along with Joe himself. So yeah, that'll pretty much be it. I'm going to be uploading images of this beautiful guy. This is known as the Demon Cop. We're going to get him a nice police hat. I'll be uploading images of these over on Instagram, on Twitter as well, and my DeviantArt page. So thank you for joining me, and I think we did pretty good with that timer, wouldn't you say? Once again, I am Dante. Like, favorite, share, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And I'll see you in the future. Later. Hello again. If you like this video, please be sure to follow me on all these social media websites with the links in the description down below. Thanks again.